Last video I said maybe there's a divide in how we write for and view blockbusters and indies. I talked about the Michael Bay Transformers movies and how the moment they tried to implement some tropes and practices more common with independent, or let's be honest, any slower paced, more conscious cinema, that was the moment the scripts tanked. I cited the reason for this to be the disparity between plot versus character-based stories. One will drive the other, and the more passive one always takes a back seat. But I knew that there were bound to be blockbusters that had something to say, that had stuck the landing while still managing to be entertaining to a wide audience. And even more than superheroes, there's a genre with such a secret wide appeal to millions of casual moviegoers. Hollywood horror. Whether you really enjoy them or you're just going to spend an hour and a half laughing off the scares with your friends, these are easy cash grab, generally poorly reviewed, and generally frowned upon movies that always bring people together. Nowadays they're taking bigger risks, they're employing new tropes, and consequently they're breaking records and changing the way people think about movies and each other. Whether we're adopting these new ideas or the films are rather a reflection of society at the time is hard to say. But John Carpenter's original Halloween film from 1978 did just that, grossing $47 million at the US box office, roughly $150 million in today's currency, off of a $300,000 budget, made it one of the most profitable independent films of all time. It's also my favorite horror film of all time. Even some of my favorite 21st century writers and directors like Mike Flanagan or Alex Garland failed to capture the brilliance and simplicity that Carpenter brought to the table. He and Deborah Hill's collaboration brought about some really profound motifs in the film that, according to them, were entirely accidental. Laurie Strode's survival establishing the theme that virginity, here linked to innocence or naivete, is the only defense against impartial, unrelenting evil. Or that Michael, symbolizing evil, wasn't just to have that evil invade small-town USA to illustrate the changing times, but the evil was always there. It was born and bred in Haddonfield. We were responsible for it, but we allowed ourselves to deny that. It was with this that Michael Myers became one of the most recognizable horror movie characters of all time, spawning imitators that tried to bank off the success of his iconography, like later iterations of Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger to a lesser extent. But just like Freddy, the shell of Michael's character soon became all that remained, and the series devolved more and more into glorifying violence and profit. Then along came the 2018 reboot, aptly titled Halloween. Directed by David Gordon Green, the film quickly garnered a lot of attention, positive and negative, when it was revealed that they were wiping every Halloween movie after the original from canon to be free to tell a better story. This wasn't the first time this happened. I just hoped this time they would actually have a reason for it. Maybe they would take the chance to explore what Michael Myers could do to someone. That it'd be a film that furthered Laurie Strode's story and had something new to say about the nature of evil. And it does just that, finally feeling like a continuation of Carpenter's original vision. When I first came out of the film, I did not like it. The dialogue felt too faux modern, the relationships between characters in Laurie's family and in the granddaughter Allison's friend group felt contrived, stilted, and the implications of the final shot felt so callous and commercial that I left the theater feeling like, after countless attempts, my favorite horror movie was now forever buried under the public perception of it, in the gore and the cheap scares, rather than what the original film had stood for. However, as time passed, I couldn't get the film off of my mind. Something wasn't sitting right with me, and so I revisited it once it came out on Blu-ray, and now, well, I'm making this. Green is no indie gem per se. His wide array of director and producer credits consist of large commercial films in all sorts of genres, examples being Your Highness, The Sitter, and Stronger. But he exudes indie traits. A big thing that he tends to focus on is character, especially in his early comedy films. Specifically, he ensures that his characters are always active rather than passive. For those that aren't clear, Sid Field, in his book Screenplay, essentially defines an active character as someone that causes things to happen in the plot, whereas passive characters have things in the plot happen to them. In the last video, I distinguished indie films from blockbusters based on their attention to character, and the same could be said in this context. If a character is only given something to do so that they can further a plot point, there's nothing to invest in. That's clear in this film to an extent, as each minor character, or one-off kill, is given some quirk to set the scene, to help the audience get attached. But the obvious focus of this characterization and the draw of this film is Jamie Lee Curtis's unique reprisal as this unique iteration of Laurie Strode. This is a movie about trauma and how people may perceive someone suffering from PTSD as inherently villainous. Seen here through Laurie being the one to stalk Michael, harp on her family, and even standing in for Michael in certain recreations of scenes. It's even seen through Michael by putting the perspective on him at several key points in the story, placing him in the role of the would-be protagonist for a moment to recontextualize that final battle. Even down to the final shot, this theme of the cycle of trauma is preached over and over and over. That outside perception of Laurie is almost as strong as her own characterization, and that's what makes this movie so interesting. The fact that the town of Haddonfield is extremely hypocritical. The film went beyond just furthering the story Carpenter had laid out. It served as a meta-commentary on the current social landscape of Haddonfield, and the franchise as a whole. The people who shame and disregard Laurie Strode, calling her crazy or a recluse, are the exact same people who are terrified as soon as word gets out that Michael is back. They only care about the effects of Michael when it directly affects them. The atmosphere of Haddonfield in this film is immaculate. The quick glimpses of everyone panicking while the police try to quell the situation genuinely made the town feel alive for the first time. It made itself a character, and not just a backdrop for a message. These civilians are living a new way of life, and choosing a more objective point of view on this town shows just how contradictory these people can be. Everyone's also trying to understand Michael Myers. Everyone from the new Loomis,
you're the new Loomis,
to the podcasters are pushing Michael back into the box that they're familiar with, trying to justify him. They set things up in such a way so that Michael can escape and make his way back to Laurie for the fated final showdown. Except, that's not what happens. As soon as Michael is free, he just wanders around town killing mindlessly, like he did in the original. It's only through the intervention of characters like the Doctor and Laurie's family that Michael even gets close to her house. The outside world is reinforcing Laurie's survivor guilt and paranoia. This drives her into this sad state of self-isolation, closing herself off from family because of some perceived outside notion that she's crazy. This is most clearly seen when Laurie is clearing the house, when she reaches the room of bloody mannequins. As an audience member, you can't help but scream, "Why don't you just shut the door and lock him in? Get out of there!" But the point is that she doesn't want to leave. Trapping herself until she finds closure symbolizes how her trauma has so far prevented her from moving on with her life. She knows he's in there. This is the moment she's been waiting for, to finally kill him once and for all. But for the first time in the movie, she just freezes, terrified. Those human moments, those points where we get a chance to breathe and really take in what the film is trying to say, those are what elevate this film to something beyond a standard franchise blockbuster. The film's success is also key in helping legitimize smaller, more personal, more character-driven stories for being greenlit for wide release. It's also the reason why the film just looks so good. Michael Cimins' cinematography does an excellent job at always keeping Michael's mask in the shadows, even in super dark settings. The silhouettes create a really unique look for the film compared to the rest of the franchise, and the blue hues contrasting with the bright whites mix so well with the blacks and oranges that it just oozes Halloween atmosphere. The scares here are genuine set pieces, not just money shots. The motion light scene, Laurie closing off rooms, the bathroom scene, the one take. The drama scenes also have just as much tension as basic scare setups, preventing any real lull in the film. From the funny,
oh shit,
to the ironically great,
I got peanut butter on my penis.
Ew, Dad.
to the downright unbearable comedic relief.
Homemade brownies, chocolate pudding.
You made those?
Yeah, I made that myself. Because I'm a baker, I like to bake.
That's like what a 5-year-old would eat if they could make their own lunch.
Which is kind of necessary when marketing to the dumbest general audience. Yeah, I can't really defend that. Anyway, the point is, horror movies have always loved to needle into people's psyche and show the nuances behind the human condition, good or bad. They ask the real questions about us as individuals and as a collective. Would we do the same? That doesn't just apply to the slasher get-out-alive situations. It's about the will to act, to deceive, to persevere, all the little things that we try to deny or avoid. The reason I love this film is that it does all that, and then some. Horror is such an emotionally evocative genre, sensationalizing all sorts of topics that would normally categorize a film as straight drama. It's a gateway into a heightened, surrealist form of storytelling that can make a real impact. Michael Myers was the perfect vehicle to deliver a message of a changing time. But here, 40 years later, it's his absence that proved just as strong of a message.